You're sitting in your classroom. It's 6:47 a.m. You've been there since 5:30. Papers stacked on your desk like they're multiplying. Your coffee is cold. Again. And then you did the thing you promised yourself you'd stop doing. The one you do every September. Your hourly rate. You divided your annual salary by the actual hours you work. Not the contract hours. The real hours. The ones where you're grading until midnight on a Sunday because you care about feedback. The answer made you feel sick. If this is hitting close to home, hit subscribe. I make videos specifically for teachers about money, and if you know a teacher who needs to hear this, send it to them. Now imagine the same morning, but it's your kitchen. It's 6:47 a.m. You're holding a cup of coffee that's still hot because you made it 7 minutes ago. Your laptop is open. You're not thinking about papers. You're thinking about the project you just finished that paid you $4,200 last week. And it's only Tuesday. The difference between these two mornings isn't luck. It's not talent. It's not even leaving education. It's knowing that your skills have a second market, and that market pays a lot better. The average public school teacher in America makes $67,000 a year. That number feels big when you say it alone. But here's where it gets depressing. You're contracted for 1,080 hours. That's 180 days, 6 hours per day of direct instruction. But you're not actually working 1,080 hours. You're working closer to 2,000. Some studies put it higher. You're creating lessons. You're personalizing feedback. You're emailing parents at 9 p.m. You're buying supplies with your own money because the school budget ran out in January. That's $67,000? You're earning about $33.50 an hour once you count the real work. And that's the median. In most states, it's lower. $33.50 an hour. For a master's degree. For shaping the next generation. Let that land. In high cost of living states like California and New York, that number gets even worse. A teacher in San Francisco making $75,000 sounds reasonable until you factor in rent, which averages over $3,000 a month for a one-bedroom. At that point, you're not building wealth. You're surviving. But here's what nobody tells you in the teacher's lounge. Instructional design is a world most teachers don't know exists. It's the architecture behind corporate training. Someone has to design the onboarding course for new hires at Google. Someone has to build compliance training for banks. Someone has to structure the certification program for nurses. That someone used to be a teacher. They just realized there was another market for their exact skill set, but with a different paycheck. The average instructional designer in corporate America makes $85,000 a year. But here's the plot twist. That's the salary version, the contract version, the freelance world where teachers actually end up once they make the leap. The money moves into a different galaxy. Teachers who make this pivot aren't unicorns. One former high school English teacher had 8 years in the classroom, the kind of teacher students remember. She was walking away making $58,000 a year. Good at the job. Great, actually. But great didn't cover groceries and car insurance. She made $15,240 in her first full month as a freelance instructional designer. Here's how that happened. Because the breakdown is more valuable than the number. She had been creating curriculum constantly, writing lesson plans, designing assessments, structuring student projects. Nobody was paying her for that skill outside the classroom walls. The first thing that shifted was understanding the market she didn't know she was in. When she left teaching, she didn't become a different person. She became the same person, but valuable to a different buyer. As a teacher, her buyer was the government. The government had already decided how much she was worth. There was no negotiation. There was a pay scale. You climbed it slowly. 8 years in, she made maybe $15,000 more than in year 1. As an instructional designer, her buyer was a corporation trying to save money on training failures. If she could design a course that reduced onboarding time by 30%, she would save them tens of thousands in lost productivity. If she could make a compliance course so clear that error rates dropped, she'd save them from lawsuits. Suddenly, she wasn't a cost center. She was a profit center, and profit centers get paid differently. Her first project came through a connection. A friend's company needed someone to rebuild their customer service training. It was outdated. People hated it. New reps were failing faster than they should. She knew how to fix it. She knew how to structure information. She knew how to write clear objectives. She knew how to assess learning. These weren't new skills. These were the exact same skills she'd been using to teach teenagers Shakespeare. But now she was doing it for 50 new hires at a tech company, and they were paying her $3,200 to redesign the 8-week program. It took 40 hours of work. That was $80 an hour, more than double what she was making per hour as a teacher. The second project came faster. A consulting firm needed training modules for a client sales team. $2,800 for 30 hours, $93 an hour. The third came in at $4,200, the fourth at $2,400. By week 4, she had made $15,240. In 1 month, she had made 26% of her annual teacher salary. But this is where most people tell the story wrong. They make it sound like instructional design is the answer. Like, if you're a teacher watching this, the obvious move is to pivot tomorrow. And that's incomplete. Because there's a cost to that number that no one talks about. In month 1 as a freelancer, she worked 58-hour weeks, no health insurance. She had to buy her own, which ate $600 of that month's pay. No retirement matching. No dental. No sick days. If she got pneumonia, she didn't get paid. And she was also losing clients who expected their projects on time. She had to save 30% of every check for taxes. So that $15,240, the real take-home, accounting for insurance and taxes, was closer to $8,200. Still more than she made in a month as a teacher, but the burden shifted from the employer to her. Here's what the highlight reel leaves out. Month 2 was $8,900. There was a gap between projects. Month 3 was $12,450, then $16,180, then a $3,400 month during a client's budget freeze. The average across her first year was $11,200 a month. That's $134,400 annually. On paper, that's a 232% raise. But she was eating that variability. Not sleeping, checking email at midnight because a client's project went sideways, rebuilding her entire identity. She was no longer a teacher. That title was gone. And if you've taught for more than 3 years, you know how much of your identity that title holds. Some people can't do that. Some people shouldn't do that. The teacher who thrives on summers off, on the rhythm of the academic calendar, on the social structure of a school building, that teacher might make less money as a freelancer, even if the hourly rate is triple. Because the freelancer version requires you to be your own boss, your own marketer, your own accountant, and your own therapist when the work dries up. But there's another version of this story, the one where you don't go fully freelance. A lot of teachers make a different pivot. They take a full-time job in corporate instructional design, salary positions. They're making $95,000 to $130,000. They have benefits, they have predictability, they have 40-hour weeks, actual 40-hour weeks, not the ghost 60-hour weeks of teaching. They're no longer buying classroom supplies with their own money. They're not grading at 11 p.m. on weekends. They're not dealing with the emotional labor of being a parent figure to 150 teenagers. The comparison that matters isn't her $15,000 month versus your $5,600 teacher month. The comparison that matters is your actual cost. What are you really earning per hour when you count all the hours? And what would you earn doing the same work, designing learning, writing curriculum, assessing understanding, but for a corporation instead of a government? For some teachers, the answer is $40,000 more per year. For some, it's $80,000. For some, it's staying and building a life around lower income because the other things matter more. The real story isn't about the money. It's about the fact that your skill set has a value the market isn't paying you for. A school district sees you as a line item in a budget. A corporation sees you as someone who solves a $200,000 problem. One pays accordingly, one doesn't. And the choice you make says something about what you believe you're worth. That first $15,000 month wasn't a victory. It was evidence. Evidence that the work had value. Evidence that someone was willing to pay for it. Evidence that the $58,000 she was making before wasn't an accident. It was a choice, made by institutions that had already decided what teachers are worth. If you want to know exactly how to make this pivot, what to charge, where to find clients, and how to build the portfolio that gets you there, that's the next video. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if this video was useful, hit the like button. It helps more teachers find this channel.